Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back again to Carpos Corner. Is that what it is? Yeah, Carpos Corner. Sometimes I forget. I've got my little chart here. See? And this is my daily itinerary that I just filled out. As I mentioned before, Carpos Corner is just thoughts off the top of my head, no notes, or I've never had a script, of course, but sometimes I have notes, but I'm going for the free flow. See what I can come up with. Maybe if I wear these funky glasses, I'll have better thoughts and ideas. No, ain't right. How about if I flip them up? They're prism glasses. They're fun. But at any rate, I took a couple tokes. I'm a little ripped. I'm just here to talk about freedom. The freedom to do the things that I choose to do in my life without interference. Of course, we don't live in a truly free society because there are rules to freedom. And I don't really know where to go with that particular discussion, but I suppose we'll start with the fact that I am grateful to live in a country where I have the freedom to choose a job that I want, and I also have the freedom to run my own business if I want, which I have a few times, and then now I'm working for someone else again, and it goes back and forth. You have the options to change your career, to change what you want to do, and if you so choose, to work really hard and do really well. And this idea of a meritocracy, I know a lot of people cringe at it, that the harder you work, then the more you can make and the better off you can be. It's true, but not in the sense of just monetary gain. I'm not talking about being a millionaire here. I'm just talking about being a millionaire in your heart and here and being a happy person. What does that entail? And I think that having freedom to make our choices makes us happy. It's without that, a society can become miserable or have a faux happiness, which, imagine places like China, where many of the people are either just used to it, so they accept it, the fact that it's an authoritarian country, or they actively rebel against it and then they get shut down and voices aren't heard. Like, I know a lot of people, and myself included, complain about America and all the problems we have. But I am still grateful, and I want to make that very clear, that I consider what we have to be some of the greatest freedoms in the world. And you can speak against those you don't like. You can say things about corporations. They may not like it, but you still have that right. And I have the freedom to also travel, even though there may be issues with police harassing people, seizing money, things like that. I'm going to a concert in a couple hours. Actually, I decided to make this video real quick before we went. We still got about an hour and a half before we leave. I'm going to see Billy Strings tonight at the Edgefield. And every time I go to a concert, I revel in that freedom to hang out with other people. But I guess that brings to mind the fact that you have to go through a security checkpoint. Last time they made me turn in my hip pack when I went to see Dark Star Orchestra a couple weeks back. They let me take the stuff out of my hip pack and put it in my pockets, but my hip pack was larger than they allowed. And it's it's only like this big. And I was like, this is ridiculous. They're like, oh, sorry, it's bigger than the little box they have. I saw other people wearing bigger bags than I had, and I'm like, there's no consistency. But my point being that it's security measures are something that infringes on your freedom, because your freedom can often cross with other people's freedom. So, for example, I don't have the right to carry a weapon into a stadium if they don't allow weapons. That is their right. It's just the same way that a person can choose not to let you in their house if, for whatever reason they choose. Reserving the right to refuse service, starts in the household and it moves outward to companies, because true freedom means you can not serve anyone you want. That's come to a big problem in modern society because, for example, in Portland, even years ago, it started this whole thing where some company wouldn't bake a cake for a gay wedding. They wouldn't bake a birthday cake, and they were a bakery. And it started this whole, harassment campaign, and I think they got shut down. But the thing is, people should have the freedom to choose not to serve someone for whatever reasons. You may not like it, and that's uncomfortable for some people, but being uncomfortable is something that just comes with life. You don't give a free pass and get to not, have everyone just accept you for who you are. People, people get harassed for all different reasons. Even if it's racism, whatever it might be, sexism, we're not going to get rid of those things, but we can ignore it and at least just ignore it where we can see it, but fight it when we can, if we can. But it's not worth getting all upset about. It's not worth starting a huge internet hubbub about who should serve who and do what, because ultimately freedom has many faces, you know. I thought about this with the mask thing. I don't believe that the government should be able to tell people that they should have to wear one out on the streets or in public or at their homes. But in California, they made a mask mandate for households. They actually told people they have to wear a mask at home. Totally ludicrous. But if a company chooses to do it for their own store reasons, and the company themselves say, we want you to wear a mask if you come to our store, honestly, that really is their right to do so. I mean, it may be BS to you, but that's the thing. There are many freedoms that you can't infringe on someone else's business and go in there and do something. It's just like when you go in barefoot or without a shirt and they kick you out, which they actually tried to do a month ago or so. It was a just roasting hot day. I just got home from work, went to the store, got a beer, and I had no shirt on in the store because I was just, sticky, and I didn't want my shirt was all wet from work, so I didn't have it on. And some guy comes up, he's like, sir, he goes, you really have to put a shirt on. Oh, you really have to put a shirt on. And I said, do I? Says who? And I just kind of walked off. And nobody bothered me. I mean, I shopped for another few minutes, got my stuff, and went home without issue. On one hand, I said, yeah, I stood up for my rights. But at the same time, he was in the right because he worked for the store. And you're supposed to wear a shirt in the store. So anyway, freedom. That's a long, confusing issue and a long, complicated discussion that gets into people having to sacrifice certain freedoms. Remember the old saying, freedom ain't free, That often comes from, people who lean right, and it's true. Freedom isn't free. We have to actually pay for it through sometimes bloodshed. It's unfortunate. Somebody has to do it, kind of thing. Like, everybody plays, and, a lot of people will pretend to be innocent, that they would never harm another soul, but the minute somebody comes into your household, you're gonna stand up for yourself, right? Well, the same thing if somebody were to invade your homeland, something in America, we would never even understand what that's like. No American understands what it's like to have actual people infiltrating your country. And because of that, it's almost like we look at each other as infiltrators. It's really ridiculous. And that's why I lean towards basically libertarian values. Not left or right, but I'm not a libertarian by any means. I don't believe having a party is the solution. I believe voting for candidates that have values is the solution. We haven't done that in so long. This still happens around the world, but not very often. A few people go up on stage and they have the discussions about what the people want. The panels representing the actual people ask questions on what they're going to do, what kind of policies, how about health care, or whatever it might be. And then they listen and they implement the strategies that we choose as people, because we're the people and we vote for them. But instead of saying, well, I'm with this party, so you just have to accept me, people vote for individuals. It's a lot more difficult for people. I don't think we can grasp that as a modern society at all. The ability to do that, it seems impossible. I mean, having a third party even really seems impossible. But that brings me to the next part of the discussion. Unhappy people, misery loves company. I don't know why that came to mind just before I made this video. And I was thinking about how a lot of people who feel that their rights are infringed a lot, and a lot of people who are screaming online about having the inability to say what they want to say, or having their rights taken away as far as speech. And I thought about this because this issue goes into like platforms, because I've had my YouTube channel censored and even once deleted by YouTube because I talked about stuff they don't want to hear about. I've had plenty of strikes and warnings. all the time. I always have some kind of a warning or something. And it's because they don't want people to have their own opinions. There really is a mainstream narrative, and if you make videos, you see this. It's not like some right-wing conspiracy, although it comes across that way when people say, oh, we're being censored, we're being censored. If you're just an individual person posting comments in various threads, you don't notice it. But a lot of people are starting to notice it when they go back, and they see that their comments are gone. Auto deletion. It'll leave it up for a period of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe an hour, who knows, but a lot of these who have certain phrases or discussions, if you put anti-Semite in something, or even the word Jew, it probably gets deleted instantly. It's just because of the sensitivity of the culture and the time we live in, where words have become weapons. Oh God, it's really ridiculous. I gotta step off camera for just a second. And for a lot of people, it's a matter of when a lot of people come online and they see something that upsets them, they comment about it and they get into an argument, or they make videos talking about a topic that they feel so angry about. And sometimes, a lot of the times, it's a legitimate complaint. But sometimes you find that people are consistently complaining over and over about things. Everything in life is a problem. These guys that make videos talking about all the world's issues, drama kings, queens, I can't even deal with it. I can't listen to people who are always on the negative and always complaining, because they very rarely present any solutions. They might sell you some vitamins or something. I mean, it's usually just a bunch of crap to sell ads. There's not a lot of real content out there where people seem to be, out to really discover the truth, which always lies in the middle. Because if you don't appeal to one side or the other, then you're basically, you'll agree with certain people on certain topics and certain people on other topics, but you're never going to pull in a huge audience if you don't agree with, and that's fine with me. That's because that's the person I am. The unfortunate thing is a lot of people aren't, and they want to fall into whatever is popular, and that gives the illusion that everyone's always arguing. You see what I mean? When you go out in your daily life, you don't see this. You don't see people acting the way that we see online, the way that everyone is portrayed as going mad. Even the riots, a couple of years ago, all these different things that have happened, they weren't as bad as they've often been portrayed. And even if they are, it's like we've been through worse. I feel like society is so damn fragile now. Everybody's just pissed off about the wrong things. And it's, it's subjective, of course. But it's still silly. So anyhow, a lot of folks who do complain tend to be negative. They tend to always complain, and if you try to have normal comments or discussions with them, they instantly resort back to how society is all screwed up, and what's the point in anything, and very nihilistic type attitudes. And on one hand, I want to talk to people like that with sense, and on the other hand, I just want to avoid them altogether. I'm a little bit sarcastic and slightly cynical and even nihilistic myself, but in the way that suits me, I ultimately believe that happiness is the end goal. Happiness not just for yourself, but for others around you in your friend and family group. This is crucial because you can be happy, but if those around you aren't happy that you surround yourselves with, nobody's going to be happy. But on the contrary to that, if you spend all your time making other people happy, being a, quote, people pleaser, you're going to regret that as well. Because it often stems from insecurity and the fact that we want others to be happy before ourselves because we think that, we don't deserve happiness somehow. It's like almost a flagellation, I guess is the word, or there's like a self-mutilation type thing that goes along with it that really goes back to many cultures and many religions of people, self-harm, feeling guilt, this guilt thing that has been really manipulated by the religions, especially Christianity, to just, you're just born with guilt. How ridiculous. But, ultimately I don't buy into guilt because guilt is completely reserved for things that you have done, not things you never did. And what we need to do to make ourselves happier, I believe, is to act according, to what we really feel is right and honest, which means taking care of ourselves and caring about ourselves and not feeling bad, just saying, I like me, as cheesy as it is, but not taking it to the extent that you think you're the be-all, end-all, because you ain't. None of us are. At any rate, thanks for coming along, and thanks for listening to this episode of Carpos Corner. If you'd like to subscribe to Patreon for even $1 a month, I have access to other videos on there about certain topics, and it's in the description. I also have a podcast called 15-Minute Free Thinking, as it says right here on the sign. And I also make custom guitars. See? It's Carpos Custom Guitars. So I have a Carpo Craft Instagram page. It's called Carpo Craft, and I also have one called Carpo Craft Guitars, a YouTube channel, where I also do my carpentry stuff and upload my tiny home things. That's like the ultimate freedom. Building tiny homes for people so they can take them and go off grid and live wherever they want. That's, I don't know, it's a cool time to live. It really is. We have access to so much, and we just got to utilize it without being idiots. Be well. Talk to you next time.